And I like the idea that you seem to be saying that you see this as like the opposite side of the coin from your other work. You're exploring the way the Marvel Universe works. In some books you do it for humor, here you're doing it seriously. Do you see yourself as stretching yourself as a writer in any way by doing this new series?
Most of my work that I did when I broke into comics, I had the very good fortune of, for my first regular assignment, being the writer on Ren and Stimpy for Marvel. And working on a licensed book is such a great learning experience because your job as the writer of a licensed book is to match the feel of that license. If someone picks up an issue of Ren and Stimpy and they open it up, it should feel like they're getting a free episode of the cartoon. If you pick up an issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the same. It's like there are these issues when we were both up at Marvel. They were coming up from, not Heiser, Rockwitz was doing Power Pack. And he didn't want to be doing Power Pack. This was an editor that he couldn't stand these characters. So he tried to do the darkest, grimmest, grittiest Power Pack.
I think this is when the Punisher showed up.
Yeah, when the Punisher showed up. And he had Tom Morgan doing this angular artwork like it was Klaus Janson doing Power Pack. And that's not how you do Power Pack. That's how you do the Punisher. If you want to do the Punisher, you do Punisher. If you want to do Power Pack, you have to know who your Power Pack audience is and give them the best Power Pack experience they can get. And that's what working on license kind of taught me. And as I went through comics, I was working on license after license from everything from doing, the Turtles to Looney Tunes to Dexter's Lab to all over the field. But in my heart, I always wanted to work on the superhero books. So when they gave me my first big break, after doing some Justice League adventures and some Batman adventures, they said, one of my editors said, I look at your Justice League issue, and if I close my eyes and don't imagine the Bruce Timm artwork, that style, this is a good Justice League story. What do you want to pitch me? And I pitched them something that became Arkham Asylum. And I knew the minute that project got approved, that if I wanted people to stop thinking of me as the Ren and Stimpy Looney Tune guy, the first thing I had to do was a shower scene where Joker raped someone in prison. And then that image would go right out the window. So that's what we did in like the first issue of Arkham. Is someone drops the soap and they're in the shower with the Joker, and no one looked at me the same. And they said, "Okay, what do you want to write next?" And then I started being able to write superhero stuff. If someone said to me tomorrow, "You get to write Daredevil," I'm going to try to write the best Daredevil I can. If someone says you get to write Power Pack, I'm going to try to do the best Power Pack I can. So when I'm working on the initiative, this is what the initiative is. And I'm going to try very hard to make it that feel. That said, Arkham's probably the closest thing that I've done to this. But it's going to have a lot more superhero action, and it's going to be it's going to be right to the vein, stripped, right down to the bone Marvel Universe. Like first issue, you get to see a scene with the Mighty Avengers and someone, and there's Ultron. Not Ultron, Ultimo.
Okay.
The big giant, Ultimo, giant Iron Man, Mandarin robot. How cool is that? To me, that's the coolest thing in the world is I get to wake up and I'm typing, and then you type in the words Ultimo. You're like, I just wrote a scene with Ultimo. How cool is that? When I'm doing She-Hulk with my artist, Rick Burchett, Rick has been doing, he's been in the DC universe for over 20 years. He was doing DC stuff when I was in college. So he's been working nonstop on Batman, and some Green Arrow here and some Green Lantern there. And like all of us, he has so much love for both universes, and he never got a chance to play in the Marvel Universe. And so here we are doing She-Hulk, and every time I get one of my gee-whiz moments and I type something in, it is 10 times with Rick. And I'll get a call on the phone, "You put Willie Lumpkin in here." I'm like, "Yeah, I get to draw Willie Lumpkin." He's so happy. Or like the thing Alan was talking about, we had a whole scene on the helicarrier with the hawk suits that Nick Fury would wear, the high altitude wing kite suits, and the flying cars and the shield jumpsuits. And Rick was just like a pig in slop. He was like all over that issue. I get to do shield. He was like, that's the greatest part of this job. I had.
You hear debates, I've always heard debates about how much of the audience really knows the old and cares about the old stuff. What do you find? I mean, do a lot of readers say, "I don't know who these characters are, why you're doing this," or you get mostly response, "It's great that you're bringing this old stuff back"?
what most people don't know about Peter, Peter is like one of the best comic book historians ever. When I was a young kid at Marvel, right out of college, you would be in the archive room all the time. Peter would like read every Marvel comic that ever was, and then go back and start at the beginning over again. You knew like everything. And when I was growing up, it was the 70s, so my Marvel knowledge is from 70s onward, and then catching up in back issues. I feel that continuity isn't a ball and chain. It's a nice, big, fun security blanket.
Yes.
It is mac and cheese. It is grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. It is, you just dip into this and you're 12 again. And it doesn't matter when you started comics. It really doesn't, because you just look at how the Masters did it. Like you read a Roy Thomas comic, and it is drenched in continuity. You could like shake it off. It could touch a comic next to it, and that comic would get continuity. It is just a thick stew. And yet, when you read a Roy Thomas comic, as he shows you continuity, he teaches you continuity.
Yes.
He brings you up to date.
Yes.
It just doesn't come out of left field. So I feel you can have as much continuity as you want in your comic. You can be as faithful as you want to all the continuity before. And as long as you introduce a new element, every time you introduce it, you bring the reader up to speed. And it's the safest thing in the world. But my first comic that I ever bought, not the first one I ever read, but the first one I ever bought was Marvel Team Up 38. And I knew who Spider-Man was from the Ralph Bakshi cartoons and watching him every morning after school, well, every day after school. And I remember, like, wow, I finally bought a comic. I have a Spider-Man comic I can read as many times as I want. And I take it home, and the first scene, and I didn't know that much about the Marvel Universe, Spider-Man swinging in the rain, and he sees the Beast, and he stops, and he goes, "Hey, Beast, how's it going?" And these two guys have a conversation like, "Hey, are you still with the X-Men?" "No, I'm with the Avengers." "I didn't see you since this." "I haven't seen you since that." And it didn't scare me as a kid. It didn't scare me at all. I was like, what are they talking about? I don't know. No, it was completely different. It was suddenly this whole world was opening up with a secret history. And I was being led into it.
Yes, they're explaining it to you what you're being led into it.
I was like, why didn't anyone tell me mutants existed? It's here. You know, it's when I used to explain it this way to other writers. They would have me try to like train other writers on Looney Tunes. They're like, do it the way Slott does it. And you watch these Looney Tunes when you're a kid, and when I was watching it was the 70s. And suddenly Bugs Bunny's saying all these World War II references. You know, and people are jumping out of nowhere and screaming, "Turn out that light!" And you don't know what was going on with rationing or turning off lights so bombers didn't see you or whatever. You didn't know that as a kid in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s or whenever you first saw Looney Tunes.
You didn't know it in the 60s either.
Yeah, you didn't know what the hell they were talking about. But you know what? 5 seconds later, Bugs Bunny gets a pie in the face and you're laughing your butt off. So, and it just goes right over your head. Or like all the adult humor that was in a Looney Tunes comic. If you were a little kid, it just went right over your head and you didn't care. You went to the next joke. And maybe you started saying it on the playground. "Shut out that light." You don't know where it's coming from. To me, continuity works like that. If someone says something like, "I haven't seen you since the Secret Wars." "Oh, hey, look, someone's robbing a bank. Let's stop him." Do you care? Are you going to waste hours scratching your head talking about Secret Wars? No. Enjoy the comic. So I think this whole idea that continuity is a weight, that we should ignore it or not deal with it at all or retcon it is silly. It's there. It's a tool. If you want to use it, it's there for you.
And it provides you all these riches to draw on, so you can bring in ULTIMO, say.
Exactly. And for the 5 guys in the room who know what "shut out that light" means or knows who ULTIMO is, you've just made them the happiest people in the room. They're like, "ULTIMO, yay!" For the other guys, you know what? It's a giant 50-foot robot. I think you can figure it out. "ULTIMO, oh no!" But for the guys who know ULTIMO, boy, was that a great moment.